My brother covered my ears every night. I just found out what he was hiding from me. My brother Bronny would pin me down and cover my ears while I slept. He'd hold them for hours, his hands pressed tight against my head, and I thought it was a game. I was 7 and he was 17, so I didn't know he was protecting me from something much worse. It happened twice a month like clockwork, always around 2 a.m. Bronny would sneak into my room and wake me gently, then press his palms over my ears so hard it hurt. His lips would move like he was saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, but I couldn't hear him. Last week I turned 18, and even though Bronny moved out years ago for college, he called me that night. "Listen, there's something you need to know about Mom and Dad, about why I covered your ears. Tell me, not over the phone. Come to my apartment tomorrow. And whatever you do, don't go in the basement tonight." But I'd waited 11 years for answers, and I wasn't waiting another day. Our parents seemed perfect. Dad was a pastor at First Methodist. Mom taught Sunday school, and they held hands at dinner. They never fought and never even raised their voices, but twice a month, Bronny would cover my ears like our lives depended on it. I waited until midnight, then crept downstairs. The basement door had 5 padlocks on it, and they were new ones, industrial grade. Dad must have installed them recently, but I found his lockpicks in the kitchen drawer and worked each lock carefully. 20 minutes later, the last one clicked open. The basement looked normal at first with Dad's workbench, Mom's canning supplies, and boxes of Christmas decoration. But behind the old bookshelf, I saw a faint white glow, so I pushed the shelf aside. There was another door, and this one was older, painted red. No, not painted, stained. Blood had soaked into the wood so deep it looked intentional. I heard voices from inside, and Dad's voice was calm and measured. "You understand why this has to happen, don't you?" A woman was sobbing. "Please, I have children. They need me. God spoke to me. He said you're unclean. Your sin must be purged." It wasn't Mom's voice, and this woman sounded younger, terrified. I pressed my ear to the door and heard metal scraping against metal. A drill started up, and the woman's scream cut through everything, so loud I stumbled backward. "Hold her steady," Dad said, and another voice responded. It was familiar, and it took me a second to place it. "Mom, she's fighting too much," Mom said, irritated. "Just do it already. We have church in the morning." The screaming intensified, and there were wet sounds, tearing, then something heavy hitting the floor, then silence. "That's number 43, Dad said. God says we need 50 before we're cleansed." "7 more then," Mom replied. "The girl from the grocery store, the one with the tattoo. She looked at you too long. Next Tuesday? Tuesday works." I backed away from the door with my whole body shaking. 43. They'd killed 43 people while Bronny covered my ears so I wouldn't hear the screams. I turned to run and slammed into someone. Bronny stood there with his face pale, and he'd been watching me from the stairs. "I told you not to come down here," he whispered. "They're killing people. We have to call the police." He shook his head. "You don't understand. I tried that when I was 15, but Dad has connection. The sheriff is in his congregation, and half the police forces. They're all part of it. Part of what? They call it cleansing. They think they're doing God's work, removing sinners." His voice cracked. "I stayed to protect you and covered your ears so you'd never know. So you could have a normal life." The door behind us creaked open, and Dad stood there, covered in blood and holding a bone saw. Mom was beside him with a mop bucket. "Well," Dad said, looking at me, "I guess you're old enough to join the family business." Mom smiled with that same warm smile she gave me every morning. "We were going to tell you next month for your birthday." "Surprise!" I ran, pushing past Bronny, up the stairs, and out the front door. I could hear Dad calling after me. "You can't run from God's work. You're chosen." I drove to Bronny's apartment and called the FBI from his phone. They didn't believe me at first, not until I mentioned the 43 victims, because it turns out they'd been investigating disappearances in our county for years. They raided the house that night and found the room. They found the bodies, or what was left of them, and discovered Dad had been feeding them to the congregation in the church's Wednesday night dinners. Mom's famous meatloaf that everyone loved? It wasn't beef. The arrest report said they found journals dating back 20 years. Dad believed God spoke to him through the television static and told him who was evil, who needed cleansing. Mom just liked watching. Bronny testified at the trial about how he discovered it at 15, how he tried to protect me, and how he covered my ears for 11 years so I wouldn't hear the screams, the drilling, or the sawing, so I could sleep while our parents butchered people 30 feet below my bedroom. They got the death penalty, and the sheriff got life. 12 members of the congregation were convicted as accomplices, but here's what haunts me. In Dad's journal, the last entry was dated the night I found out. "God says the boy is ready. He'll take my place. The work must continue." Last night, I heard static coming from my TV even though it was turned off, and for just a second, I swear I heard a voice.